Hey guys, welcome to the 14. I'm Nick Cole, and we're breaking down each SEC football game in Week 9 from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the Kentucky Wildcats visiting the Mississippi State Bulldogs. This game is going to be played at 7 p.m. Eastern Time at Davis Wade Stadium, and it's going to be televised on the SEC Network. From a betting perspective, this game opened with Mississippi State as a 2-point favorite, and it's since shifted to Kentucky as a 1.5-point favorite. From the over-under, it opened at 49.5, and it has dropped to 47 as the recording of this video. I'll bring in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, what do you make of this SEC East-West matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many years Mike Leach has left to coach, but I feel like they should force him to play this game every year on Halloween. Just whoever plays Mississippi State, you got to play on Halloween. And both head coaches have to wear costumes during the game. But Nick, why don't you tell us about the weather and injuries and Nick's news and notes?
Hey, I'm in for coaches in costumes. I think that's an opportunity for some viral moments. Let's start with the weather on this one. In Starkville on Saturday night, we've got temperatures in the 50s, almost no wind, and almost no chance of rain. So a pretty clean track for betting this one. On the injury side of things, let's start with Kentucky first. Wide receiver Josh Ali, nose tackle Marquand McCall, and tight end Isaiah Cummings are dealing with injuries this week. Ali seems trending towards playing based on what Mark Stoops has said, but McCall seems like he may still be out for this week. On the Mississippi State side of things, we've got defensive end Jack Harris is considered questionable for this week. And then let me get right into the Nick's news and notes portion of this. I want to start with Mississippi State, and you alluded to Mike Leach and Halloween, but that was sort of the headline coming out of their win against Vandy last week. It was not so much how badly and thoroughly they beat the Commodores. It was what kind of Halloween candy that Mike Leach is looking to have this week. That was the discussion coming out of that one. He hates candy corn, spoiler alert. But they won 45-6 in that game in Nashville, and the entire Bulldogs offense looked pretty good. Although I will point out that 51.5 number that we had the under on last week, Christopher hit just barely. So thank the Commodores for being inept on offense to keep that one under in spite of Mississippi State's 45 points. But speaking of that offense, Mississippi State had its second 500-yard offensive game under Mike Leach, and they threw for 461 yards in that game, which is their fourth highest total in school history. And it's actually the fifth time that they've thrown for 500-plus yards under Leach, who's just, as you know, in the middle of his second season with the Bulldogs. On the other side of things, it's worth noting, let's talk about last year for a minute. Kentucky held that Leach offense that I just praised to a total of, no points. They scored 2 points total last season, and Kentucky won 24-2 at Kroger Field. And the Wildcats forced 6 interceptions against Mike Leach's offense in that game. So the question I have is the Kentucky team that has looked really strong for most of the season is coming off of a bye week, and knowing exactly what they did against the Bulldogs last year and having ample time to prepare themselves for the air raid offense, do we see a similar performance, even though they're going to be on the road in a little bit different circumstances? It should be something to watch for. And then the last thing I'll point out before I hand it over to you for betting analysis, we're actually trying to break a tie this weekend between these two teams. This is one of the most even series in the SEC. They're tied 24-24 all time. State won 6 in a row to tie that series in 2014, and then they've traded victories since then, with the home team winning each of the last four meetings, which might be a little bit of a tell for what we might see Saturday night. Christopher, from a betting perspective, how do you see this one? I know the line's tight.
Yeah, I've talked about this in other videos for Kentucky and even in other videos for other teams, but this Kentucky defense is predicated on limiting big plays. And that worked very well against Florida, but this is the opposite of Florida. Mississippi State's offense could care less if you take away their big plays. They're basically focused on efficiency, and they may actually prefer if you play a defense that's set to prevent big plays, because if you're dropping 2 safeties deep, they'll throw underneath gladly all day. And Will Rogers seemed affected last week coming off the shoulder injury he suffered against Alabama. And I think Mississippi State will probably do their thing on offense, which is score something in the 20s against a good SEC defense, which they seem to do. If they're not playing Vanderbilt and they're not playing Alabama, that seems to be what they basically score now. So either with stats or with the eye test, I think Mississippi State's run defense is better than their pass defense. But looking a little deeper on that, they will knock you back. They will, at the line of scrimmage, their defensive line is good at getting into the backfield, but it's not a good tackling team. Pro Football Focus ranks the Bulldogs 91st in tackling. So that's important against Kentucky because Chris Rodriguez is second in the SEC in yards after contact with 447. So if Josh Ali doesn't play, or if he does play, but he's still hurt, or even if he does play and he's just not super effective, which we've seen in a lot of weeks for Kentucky, their offense may be forced to basically be centered around play action passes to Wan'Dale Robinson if Mississippi State controls the line of scrimmage in such a way that it makes it hard for Kentucky to run the ball. And Kentucky is somewhat prone to turnovers this year. They're -8 on the turnover margin. You mentioned the big advantage they had there in this matchup last season with Mississippi State. This defense is not known for takeaways this year for Kentucky. And on offense, they if you force them to throw, they sometimes make plenty of mistakes there. So something to watch out there. SP Plus projects a 3.8 point home victory for Mississippi State, which is 5.3 points more than the current spread has it as of Wednesday. And I think that the styles and matchups in this game favor Mississippi State a little bit as well. But Nick, tell me who you're betting on this game on the side and the total.
So this game to me typifies where us novice bettors struggle. When you look at a line, you see the number 12 team in the country with a better record playing against an unranked road team, or unranked home team. And you try to decipher, okay, I feel like the surface level things say Kentucky should be better. But when you dig a little deeper and get in the analytics, like you say, game script, the circumstance might lean towards the home team, Mississippi State. So I have a really hard time betting this game, and I probably won't put real money on it because of it. But for the purposes of making my pick for this game, I will take Kentucky -1.5, simply because the games that I've watched this season, I feel like I've seen a better, more consistent performance from Kentucky. And that's not to say that all of those things that you just pointed out aren't true. I could definitely see Mississippi State winning this game, so I'm staying away from it for my a cash bet. I do like the over 47 in this game. If I had to pick one thing to bet on this game, I probably would pick that. You pointed out that Mike Leach's team's probably going to end up somewhere in the 20s in this game, and I feel like Kentucky can be there with them also in the 20s. I think we get to push that total up over 47. How do you view this one?
Yeah, I mean, the market agrees with you here, considering that Circa opened the game State -2, and now we're looking at Kentucky as a 1.5 point favorite. But I'm going to go with Mississippi State here as a home underdog +1.5. I'm also going with over 47 like you are. So I guess we'll be head to head on the side. I do think this is a pretty sharp side in total. I think the odds makers or the betting market at this point is kind of hammered it into place pretty well. So I don't know that it will make my card. I think if I was going to bet on any side or total, and I had to pick something to bet on, I'd probably lean Mississippi State kind of +1.5 out of any of the bets, but not probably my favorite plays in the SEC this weekend or overall. But for Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith for the 14, and we'll talk to you next week.